my Patreon people. I finally figured it out. You know, I think it's pretty well documented that I struggle with how to attend to my Patreon page. Like, first, it took me a long time to even set up a Patreon because, I don't know, you know, I do fundraisers from time to time when I put up a play or I'm doing a film or, you know, and so then I'm like, I feel like a pig, you know. But then a lot of friends kind of finally convinced me that it was a good idea to do it, you know. So I set up the Patreon page, and then I got a few people to come on board, which was incredible to me. But then I let everybody else in for free. And then another friend of mine said to me, yo, what are you doing? Like, we're paying to be on your Patreon. We should have stuff that nobody else has access to. And, you know, I always struggled with, I don't want to leave people out just because they can't afford stuff. But then I thought they could afford $3, you know. I mean, you can be a Patreon for $3, for $5, for $15, for $35, for $5,000, whatever you want. And so I thought about it and I was like, she's right, you know. So then I just started showing certain things to you, Patreon members who pay, you know, only, you know, like you were the only ones who are getting access to that stuff. And then I realized I wasn't really doing anything, you know, because I'm kind of struggling with this project that I'm working on, and I'm keeping up with YouTube because I'm trying to keep that going. I finally got that monetized, thank you. And so I'm just doing a lot of things. Plus, the world is falling apart around us, so I've really been struggling with quite a bit of stuff lately. And then an amazing thing happened. About, I would say 2 weeks ago, I got an email reminding me, although I had heard for the first time, that there was a grant cycle open for the New York Foundation for the Arts. I thought it was for filmmaking, so I was getting ready to submit, this is the end for me, and, you know, do all this stuff for the submission. But then I realized that this cycle was not for filmmaking, but it was for playwriting. And I was like, I haven't really worked on a play in quite a while, since the pandemic, actually. And, you know, that's a long story, too. That's like an emotional, mental illness kind of thing, I guess. And I'm not even kidding about that. But anyway, I said, you know what? I wrote this play called The Red Plaid Suitcase. It started as The Book of Judith. And eventually the title changed to The Red Plaid Suitcase because I was given a red plaid suitcase that my biological mother actually owned that contained all of her worldly belongings after I started writing Book of Judith. And so, yeah, it evolved. And also after doing a lot of readings and stuff like that all over the country. And then, you know, I prepared, had a great experience, I guess about 2 years of development, got with a great lighting designer. I had an artist working with me, you know, a photographer, filmmaker. This was before I was doing filmmaking. I had an upright bass player who was like on the level of Ron Carter, like an incredible player, collaborating with me on stage. And yeah, I was ready, you know. Opening night, the Signature Theater, June 12th, 2020, part of the Downtown Urban Arts Festival, it was a big deal. And I had never worked at the Signature before. The Signature is a big, important theater in New York City. And shut down, COVID. And I was devastated. Like, I was broken by that. I don't know why particularly that got me, but I think it was because the subject matter was so profound for my life. It changed a lot of things for me. It changed a lot of perceptions. A lot of stuff that I had had in my head for my whole life was suddenly gone, because now I found out the actual story. And so I was no longer creating this story in my head. This story actually existed for real. So anyway, I hadn't looked at that script since June 12th of 2020. That was the last time I opened that file. And honestly, I didn't think I would ever look at it again. I didn't want to look at it again. I mean, at the time, I felt like it was the best play I had ever written, maybe the best work, best art I had ever created, better than any of my albums. I mean, I just thought it was the best thing I had ever done. And, I did a play called Broke Wide Open, which was something I'm so proud of. But I don't know, I think the Red Plaid Suitcase was kind of like an accumulation of everything I learned from Broke Wide Open, my whole musical career, poetry, like everything. Everything that I learned was in that play. And also, everything that I had been through in my life and grown me as a human being was in that play. That was, I felt like, my first grown-ass man project. And I'm telling you, I was so prepared. Signature Theater ain't never seen anything like what was about to be on that stage that night, June 12th. I was ready. So anyway, when I found out that this cycle for the New York Foundation of the Arts was for playwriting, I opened up the file for the first time since 2020, and man, I started reading it. I thought I would just like browse through it real quick, but then I started reading it and I realized I had adapted a screenplay from this script to make The Center of Distance my first film. That film that I shot with my phone that I did during the pandemic. So I started reading through the script and I was like, damn, this is so different than the movie. Because when I did the movie, I had to release the play. And that was part of the thing for me. I had to let all this work go out of my head. It's not easy to memorize 2.5 hours worth of words. And I had to let that go. Think about how much work that takes. The dedication, the commitment, the sacrifice. You let so many things go from your life to do this kind of work. And suddenly it was for nothing. I think that was part of what got to me. It was for nothing. So I started reading it, and I was finding myself getting immersed in it, and all of a sudden I was performing it in my bedroom, in my pajamas. And I was projecting I was on stage, and I was whispering, and I was in it, and I think I cried 9 or 10 times while I was reading that play, because there are so many moving things that happen in that story. And I had forgotten a lot of them. And then the ending. Man, when I got to the ending of this play, it is completely different than the ending of the film. And actually, the play is exactly what happened in real life. Not me, in the movie, if you haven't seen it, turn off the sound for a second. I'll let you go away. Count to, give me 20 seconds. Okay. In the movie, you hear my biological mother's voice reading a poem to me at the end, right? Because I'm going through the suitcase, but in real life, I had taken the suitcase and I had done something completely different. I know the people who walked away are back now, so I don't want to share with you what the end of this play is, because I don't want to ruin it for you, because, I submitted the first 20 pages of the script, because they would only allow you 20 pages. So I submitted the first 20 pages to the New York Foundation for the Arts. I'll hear from that in the summer. But perhaps more importantly, definitely more importantly, because fuck these, grants. It's like a needle in a haystack. I've won grants, I've won awards, but maybe 1% of what I've applied for. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how it works. I'm not good at that. I'm good at making art. Sometimes I feel like I should be paid for these submissions. They take so much time. I could have written a whole play in the time it took me to write this Jerome Foundation grant or whatever. It's kind of ridiculous, but I digress. More importantly, I have decided to do something with this script. And as much as I'm not sure that I'm going to remount the play, and actually I would say it's a 30-70 chance, and 30 being I will remount it, 70 I probably won't. However, what I am going to do is I'm going to prepare as if I'm going to remount this play, but not in the way I would if I was actually booked to open 8 months from now or a year from now, whatever, which is how it works. What I'm going to do is I'm going to prepare maybe 5 pages at a time, a scene at a time, maybe 2 scenes at a time. And I'm going to create a documentary of me doing this, of me all the stuff that I just told you. You know, maybe I'll even include this video in the film. You know, it's going to be after almost 5 years revisiting the script for the first time, which was a painful, difficult thing for me to go back and do. Not because of the subject matter of the play, but because of what happened to me then, and also the pandemic and what it represented in the world. And, you know, for me, the world hasn't gone back to normal since. Like, I still don't feel the way I felt before the pandemic. You know, I feel like I've been kind of floating around. I mean, I've been uber, you know, like productive. I've done a lot of work. You know, I've created a lot of art. I made a whole feature film, but I still don't feel the same way that I was feeling pre-pandemic, like just in my groove of my life, like everything is shaken up. And so I'm going to share with you on Patreon this whole process. Now, I don't know how much of the behind the scenes I'm going to include, because then this project would be 800 hours long, you know, and, you know, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know that I'm going to share it with you and nobody else. And I might just share each scene when I finish it, or I might share the process and the scene, or I might just, you know, like, I don't know. But I'm going to share each scene definitely with you, so that you'll be seeing it. And I feel like if you don't want to watch it, that's up to you. If you want to just wait till it's done. It's going to take a long time, because that's the way these projects are. And I'm going to memorize each section until I have an entire play memorized again. But, you know, I don't know if I'll really have, I'm not approaching it in the same way, but I'll have every section memorized. And then I'm going to, you know, do some interesting things that I think you'll really enjoy, which is part of my process of how I create theater work. And the way I've done it for years, which is traveling all over the place and, you know, doing each section in different locations. And so I'm not sure where it's going to take me, but it's a pretty big deal for me that I've reopened this process. And especially since the last movie was called This Is the End for Me. And I wanted that to be like a metaphorical death of this trilogy of dealing with my fostering and my adoption and my search for home and my identity and my biological parents and all this stuff. I wanted to be done with that, you know, but I feel like this was some kind of a profound sign. You know, it's like unfinished business, you know, and the thing is, it's written, it's developed, it's done. This is me kind of documenting what I did, because this is the thing. Being an adoptee, you know, being somebody who didn't know anything about his past and still doesn't really know anything. I know some things, but I don't get to meet anybody, you know. I don't know my medical history. I don't know what happened to me the first few months of my life. I don't know where I was, who I was with. I was just a floating baby in the world, being given different names in foster care. I don't know anything. And so as a result, I've always had this feeling of being kind of invisible and disposable. And you know, it's interesting that I've chosen theater as my life, because theater is the most disposable art form that there is, you know. I often used to say to people, like, I actually forbid anybody to film Broke Wide Open, my first play, which is crazy, because it was the most beautiful production and the most incredible experience. And I would not allow anybody to, you know, document it, because I was like, nope, theater is about right now, this moment. And the only people who are going to get to experience this are me and the audience, and that's it. Like, I could do this, like I was doing the show 8 times a week. You know, it was running off Broadway at the 45th Street Theater, which is now the Davenport Theater. And I did 8 shows a week, 2 shows on Wednesdays, 2 shows on Sundays, 8 shows a week. Every performance was completely different, I guarantee you, even though every word was exactly the same. That, you know, when I do theater work, every word is scripted, so every word, and I don't drop any lines, like every word was the same. But the energy of the room, the energy of me, the energy of the audience, what's going on in the world, it's going to be different from night to night. And so I was like, I don't want to just document one night in this journey. But I regret that. I regret that. And I'm really grateful that I have a documentation of my second play, Brooklyn Quartet. Even though it's not something I think is so awesome, it's a documentation of that project. It existed. It's real. broke wide open, it's real to me and maybe to the people who saw it, but I want to document this work. I don't want to feel like the red plaid suitcase didn't happen, you know. I don't want to feel like all that work was for nothing. I want to acknowledge my collaborators. I'm going to somehow, like, I think interview them. I'm going to do something with them, but I want it to exist. You know, I want to give it some light. And I think it'd be great to make a documentary and do it in my style. I'm a solo filmmaker. I'm going to figure out how to do this all by myself, but I am going to include some other people, hopefully. If not, you know I could figure it out by myself, because I always do. I'm not going to wait for money. I'm not going to wait for funding. I'm not going to wait for background. I'm not waiting for anything. I'm just going to do it, and I'm only going to share it with you. So I might share this video on YouTube to entice people to become one of you, but and I'm going to share it probably on social media too. But the only people who are going to watch the making of this project are going to be my Patreon people, because you supporting me means so much to me. You know, that acknowledgement alone, you know. I mean, you know, the money is amazing, you know, but it's, you know, to pay my electric bill, you know, it doesn't even pay my electric bill. So it's not supporting me, but it is supporting me, like in my chest, you know, in my blood, in my body, in my bones, and that means everything to me. And you being here, you know, it's just, you know, it's what every artist desires and frankly needs, you know, and I appreciate it so much. And so I'm going to do my best for you. So that's what I wanted to share with you here. I'm going to post this on Patreon first. I'll probably put it up on YouTube. It's not going to be a video that does well, but I'm going to put it there just to entice people. I'm going to put it on Facebook and Instagram if it's not too big. And yeah, onward we go. And thank you so much for being here. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe and please hit the like button. And please consider joining my Patreon with these other people who I made this video for. And same thing with you people on Facebook and Instagram. And, you know, you want to see what's going to happen? After hearing all of that, if you're still here, I think I got you. So that would be amazing, and my honor, and I will honor your support. So thank you, and let's go.